Ya la la ila la ila 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 ya la la ila la ila ya la 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 ya la la ila 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 ya la 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 ila ila ya la ila 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 ya la la ila 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 ya la la ya la la ila 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 ya la la. Come on, y'all. Ya la la ila 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 ya la ila 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 ya la la ila 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 ya la ila 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 ya la la ila 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 ya la la ila 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 ya la ila 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 ya la la ila 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 ya la la ya la la ila 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 ya la la. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and we're very happy to be here as well. We are a group that is comprised of Hartman associations of MLI, CLI, and RLI. And we're going to have some introductions as beautiful. Elijah the prophet herself has come. Muna is coming. It's beautiful. Yay, there's Muna. So we're a group from that is based in Austin, Texas. Nobody? Okay, well, we're welcome. Yeah. Austin, Texas. So I think it's very interesting, as wonderful as this is, that it's interesting that to get a Interfaith Hevruta had to come to Austin, which is very interesting in itself, which I think is a conversation. We're going to have some brief introductions. My name is Neil Blumofe. I'm a rabbi in Austin and a member of the RLI of Hartman, of a rabbinic leadership initiative, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege to work with and to be with this group that we'll see in just a moment. We introduced ourselves collectively as Rabbi, Muslims, and Dan. So it's Ramadan. Amanda.
It's a thing.
It's a real, yeah, it is a real thing. Am I on? Neil came up with that, though. We blame him. And we actually have some printouts here of, we're taking our show on the road. We're actually going out. We live in Austin, which is a very liberal kind of bubble. So that is probably why we're doing what we're doing in Texas. But we have taken it upon ourselves to go out into the larger state of Texas, which is huge. And so we're going to go on the road, and we're going to go out into some of these smaller communities where there are people who have probably never met a Jew or a Muslim. And we're going to go talk to those communities about our own faith and about how we interact with one another. So so it's a thing. We're a thing. Yeah.
You want to say more about yourself?
Oh, sorry. I thought I was talking about. Okay. Yes, my name is Amanda Quraishi. I'm a Muslim interfaith activist. I'm also a social media professional. And
she talks and tweets at the same time. It's actually quite beautiful.
It's poetic. I've known these people for several years. Neil, I've known, my God, a decade or more through the interfaith scene in Austin. And Muna and I obviously are from the same Muslim community. And then Dan, we were introduced to a couple years ago. And so I guess I'll just wrap this up. I'm a Muslim, I'm a mom, I'm a digital media professional, and I'm an interfaith activist, and I'm really lucky to work with these people.
When did you convert?
Huh?
When did you convert?
I converted to Islam in 1999.
And you were born?
I was born Christian.
Oh, okay, thanks.
It's that relevant.
Hi, my name is Dan Joslyn-Siemiatkoski. I'm not from Texas. I'm actually from Connecticut. So I tell people in Texas I'm like the Bushes. Helps sometimes, often doesn't. I moved to Austin from Berkeley, California in 2014. I'm a professor of church history at Seminary Southwest, which is an Episcopal church seminary, and I'm actually in the process of becoming a priest in the Episcopal church myself. I've been very active in Jewish-Christian relations. It's what I study academically and also do on the ground. In 2014, I participated in the Christian Leadership Initiative through Hartman. There, I met Neil. I met Muna randomly there as well as part of MLI. I ambushed you at an elevator bank, and you were a little jet lagged. And then once we all wrapped up our Hartman experiences, we started meeting together monthly, and that's how I really got to know these folks.
Hi, my name is Muna, and like you heard from the others, I live in Austin, Texas as well. I'm a senior manager. I work for PayPal, and I manage diversity and inclusion programs. I am a mom. I have an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I don't know what else. I like to consider myself an athlete. I don't know if my husband would agree with that. You guys need to wake up. All right, I'm gonna turn it back to Rabbi.
All right, so thanks. So there's a few things that we'd like to do together and with you as well. So everybody has the sheet, yes? So we're gonna dive in just a few moments. But we'd like for us to consider, for you to think about why you came to this session, why you came to this Hevruta today, this morning. What are you looking to achieve? What are you looking to witness or see or confirm or deny? And I think if you were here just before, Yehuda's charge of how do we get involved, I think was tailor-made for each of us. And I think in the texts, you'll see that the conversation that we're going to have is not necessarily going to change the world so dramatically immediately. However, with the accretions of vulnerability, the accretions of commitment that we'll make, perhaps it does change things over time. And certainly all of us who do have children, I think it's pretty normal when my son would say, oh, you're going back to New York to speak with the Muslims and the Christian. Oh, that's great. Have a great time. So we want you to see why you were here, and we want you to formulate, as opposed to us giving to you, a call to action. Where are you going to go from here? We'd like, to say, oh, that was very interesting. Those people in Austin are very interesting. Rather than that, we'd like you to see what it means and how we change when we study sacred texts together, how we meet each other, and especially and importantly, how we meet each other beyond the conference. All 4 of us decided to come here today from Austin specifically to attend the conference, not only because we like to be traveling, but also because we think, as Amanda said, it's an important moral responsibility to model conversations like this. And how do we pursue righteousness? And as you'll see in the texts, how do we cultivate moral courage in the core values of our traditions? So that's where we are, and we're hoping to find that through our conversations and our collective conversations about the text. So Amanda, why don't we look at text number 1, and maybe it's easier just to sort of read it and then where you're coming from for a little riffing.
Sure.
Thanks.
Genesis Rabbah 39:1. God said to Abram, go forth from your land. Rabbi Isaac said, this may be compared to a person who was traveling from place to place when they saw a palace in flames. The person wondered, is it possible that this palace has no one who looks after it? The owner of the palace looked out and said to the person, I am the owner of this palace. Similarly, because Abraham, our father, wondered, is it possible that this world is without a leader? The Blessed Holy One looked out at him and said, I am the owner of the world. So just initial thoughts are that clearly if you're walking around and you see somebody's house burning down or a palace burning down, there's probably, the owner is probably preoccupied. The owner's probably busy doing something really important, like trying to figure out how to put the flames out. And the only reason why they might stop to address you is if you initiated a conversation, if you wondered, if you sought out who the owner was. Otherwise, why would they bother? And so I think that this, is the same thing with our relationship with God, and that is that we have a responsibility to take a step forward, right? And we have a very nice tradition in Islam that says, if you take one step toward Allah, He will meet you the rest of the way, right? And the idea being that that's the thing that we have to do, is initiate. And after that, we can have that relationship, but in all the great, grand, wonderful universe, if we can't even bother to take a moment and wonder and seek and look and try to find the source, then why would God even want a relationship with us?
So perhaps the flame is for us to notice, very similarly like Moses noticing the burning bush, perhaps.
Yeah.
So Dan, when you teach this and when you engage in this text, your specialty is early rabbinic literature. What do you see? How do you react based on what Amanda has said, based on your own thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking here, the palace in flames, what's the parallel with Abraham looking at, like the world in flames, right? Like what God's created is his palace, right, here on earth. And so Abram saw the world in flames in a way. What does that mean? That it was a context of division, conflict, destruction. And Abram's asking, well, what sort of responsibility do I have to this context? So I'm thinking here about being the disinterested observer versus the interested observer. So listen to Yehuda and Jonathan before, and I'm one of like two Christians here, I think, today.
We see you, though.
You see me. Thank you for seeing me. Really sitting here thinking as a white male Christian,
here we go.
American.
Already.
Right?
Before 11. There we go.
I always go there. It's so easy for my group to operate from a disinterested perspective. To say, isn't that interesting what's happening? Or that's a problem, but it's not my problem. And so how to move into ownership.
So how do you identify with Abram or Avram at this point?
He's the one who's called out. Once you hear the call of God, you are compelled to move. And this is why I work with my students, is getting them to see through the lens of history, the lens of study, how are you called out? How are you called from being moved to disinterested, privileged, to engaged and accountable?
Okay. So seeing it from Moses and of course from Dan, which I think there's a nice line of legacy there, then engagement is contingent only on being called out by God. Is that the only way that can happen?
No, it's big. When you are in a community of faith, you're in a community of faith that's been called out collectively, right? And so it's recognizing the other communities that are also having their collective experience being called out. So for me, it's never solely an individual experience, but a corporate experience.
Okay. And perhaps you have that luxury. Muna, how about you? Do you feel that you have your back is had by the Muslim community when you feel that you're taking a risk to be here? Dan has mentioned he's got his collective faith behind him. How about you?
they may have my back, they may not have my back, but going back to the text, right? If the palace is on fire and the owner is watching, what is our relationship to that, right? And the way that I was raised in my family, there was no differentiation between myself and anyone else we met. It's not like my parents only told me to interact with Muslims and only have a relationship with Muslims, that those were the folks that mattered. Anyone we came across was someone that I was told to pay attention to, right? And that it doesn't matter if the house is burning or the world is burning, it's our world. You have to take ownership, right? Like we have a saying that in our ummah, right? Like even if the pinky is hurting, the whole body is hurting. And that's sort of the thought process I was raised with, right? And so whether it's someone else's palace or not, it is mine to take care of. It's my responsibility. And if that's, the world, it's my responsibility to partake and take care of it or whoever is around me. I wasn't, just in a very open way. Does that make sense?
Sure. And I think that echoes a lot of what we heard this morning too, but I have a question for all of us and for all of us to consider. So that's true that we have, if the pinky or if there's a train or whatever it is, but how do we develop and cultivate the capacity to actually reach out and do those things? Many of us are busy. Many of us have the needs within our concentric circles of influence, within our families, within our communities. And then how do we actually go and say what matters in a community that I may not have a stake in, that matters? I get that it's intellectually important to say that I do and that the other is mine and I am the other, but how do we actually go out and do that? How do all of us make time to actually meet? We say once a month, every so often. Is it the lunch? I mean, what is it? What do we do? And, I just want to draw this home. It's interesting and we're such a privilege to be here. However, the four of us would have been yesterday at a gathering in a section in Austin where a mosque that is being built was suspiciously burned down. And there was a gathering yesterday, and of course they called us and we're like, sorry, we're going to be in New York talking about Jews and Muslims and Dan. But it's a thing.
My students were there.
And so, but how do we not only know that it's important, but how do we develop the capacity to actually go out and honor those things that are more removed from us?
I think that's actually the most important part, Neil, is to ask the question, right? How do you get involved? How do you get connected? How do you build those relationships? And we can't boil the ocean, but you have to take bites out of things. So take.
It was like the best mixed metaphor ever.
All right.
So if you're tweeting, we can't boil the ocean. We have to take small bites out of things.
What's going on?
I'm sorry.
Usually we study without microphones.
I'm just going to stop moving.
Things are so dense here in New York.
So
So Muna, what do you mean? So what do you mean? I mean, so you have just by naming it means that we're involved somehow?
I think you have to start somewhere. You have to, you can't be like, oh, I wish I could do that. And then just keep thinking about it and spinning your wheels, right? Like I have a lot of Muslim friends who are like, oh, I'll pray about that. And I'm like, that's great. What are you actually going to do?
Yikes.
Yep. So, and I think that we are in an interesting point in time too, where we now have access to the internet. I spend a lot of time on social media. I know a lot of people do. And I think that one of my biggest criticisms when I see the activism happening online is that it really, a lot of it is talk, right? And you can talk yourself into insanity, right? You can overthink everything. I think we all are at the saturation level of what we can actually process and deal with from out there. And so a lot of our communication with one another has become knee-jerk and very rhetorical. And so I think we have to take it upon ourselves. It has to be a conscious step to look for concrete, substantial, real life engagements that everyone can participate in. And the problem is nobody wants to do that because it's not sexy or fun, right? None of us are MLK, right? None of us are Martin Luther King. We're not these great, we're not Moses. We all have this complex that we want a savior complex, right? And when it comes down to it, going and volunteering a couple of times a month at a local shelter or doing interfaith engagement at where maybe 30 people show up at most, it doesn't seem very life-changing and exciting. And so we'd just rather sit there and tweet, inspirational quotes on the internet. But
Speak for yourself.
Well, I'm just saying, I see a lot of that, and I think I can say that I'm guilty of that too. And I still do a lot of stuff, and I think I'm a slacktivist sometimes. So the idea is we have to all take it upon ourselves. I mean, it really is, I think, a personal initiative that you have to take. Abraham was wandering around. He saw this thing in flames. It was a palace. He lived in tents. It's not like he needed to really worry about it. They have insurance, I'm sure, right? Like he didn't have to worry about it. He took it upon himself to do something, to make a step, to make a statement. So I think that that's something, and maybe a takeaway, hopefully a call to action, is to find one thing that you can do in real life, in your community, on the ground, that is advancing your ideals.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that. Like, I really want to speak to the importance of relationship over projects. That I believe that anything that's transformative comes out of one-on-one relationships. So if you want to say, like, how can I change things? Make friends with a Muslim. Make friends with a Jew. And I'm just going to make a confession here. These two, I think, are my first Muslim friends.
Yes.
You know, like, I grew up like having people I knew in high school, for instance, right? But then, you know, I got a PhD in Christian theology. And I was blessed to have a professor of Jewish studies in my department and had a network of Jewish friends, and that has been life-changing for me. It really affected the first 40 years of my life, but now I'm realizing that here's a new trajectory of my life through Shalom Hartman. And so now when I'm on social media and I'm engaging with people who are Islamophobic, I say, do you know a Muslim? And they're like, well, how am I going to get to know a Muslim? I say, well, I see you live in Winnipeg. I was doing it with an Islamophobic Canadian. And I said, I know there's a Muslim community in Winnipeg. Why don't you go meet some of your Muslim neighbors in Winnipeg? And he said, what am I going to do? Just talk to one on the street? I said, I bet you could find a way. And the transformative power of relationship, one-on-one, will lead to the larger blocks.
I think that's amplified, just to bring it in, the second text as well. So Dan, could you read the first, I don't know how it's formatted.
First
paragraph, if
yeah.
you don't mind. Thanks.
Rabbi Azariah taught in the name of Rabbi Acha's name, you have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. He taught that this refers to the verse about our father Abraham. When Abraham, our father, stood to plead for mercy for the residents of Sodom, what is written there? That be far from you to do after this manner. Rabbi Aha explained it this way. You have sworn not to bring a deluge upon the world. Would you transgress your oath? Not a deluge of water will you bring, but a deluge of fire. Then you have not been truth to your oath as well.
Would you continue?
Rabbi, is it Levi?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Rabbi Levi taught, shall not judge of all the earth do justly. If you desire the world to endure, there can be no absolute justice. While if you desire absolute justice, the world cannot endure. Yet you would hold the cord by both ends, desiring both the world and absolute justice. Unless you forget a little, the world cannot endure.
Unless you forget a little. Wow. The Blessed Holy One said to Abraham, you have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness about everyone. From Noah until you, Abraham, for 10 generations. And out of all of them I spoke with you alone, thus saying, now God said unto Abraham. So based on this idea of relationship versus project, this idea, and we're going to speak just for a couple more minutes, and we'd love to open it up and include all of our voices as well, just to see. I'm actually, Amanda, if you don't mind, you have so many things you do. You should look her up on all the Snap Buzz or whatever it is, things, all the things. But why do you study with us? Why do you, of all the discretionary time that you don't have, why do you make time to engage in this setting?
So I think it comes down to that I love people. I think people are fascinating, and probably the most valuable thing that I have myself, my most valuable asset is my spirituality. And so I'm naturally interested in how other people's spirituality manifests themselves. I'm not a scholar, right? I'm not particularly interested in the academic pursuit of knowledge about Judaism or Islam. I think both of that is fascinating. I've read lots of things about both. Theology is interesting to me, but the most interesting thing to me is how these world religions, how these centuries-old traditions manifest in the daily lives of people, individuals. So first and foremost, I'm fascinated by being able to have conversations with these three people because they're all very, very interesting, because the things that they do and the things that they believe and the way that they live their lives based on their faith is unique. You're never going to find these three people anywhere else in the world. I love being able to have those conversations. But then also, because we have the capability, we're blessed with the capability to have these conversations together in public spaces, it demonstrates that for others. When other people see us interacting and see are able to see the embodiment of my Islam and her Islam, which are very different. It's the same tradition, but we are different, very different people.
I wouldn't wear those glasses. I'm just saying.
And to me, that's beautiful. That's the variegation of humanity, right? And so that is absolutely why I do it.
So we're going to have more conversations. Muna, as you're adjusting, nobody's watching. It's not a big deal. As we know about the idea of not setting ourselves too ambitious a goal, of scaling back our own pursuit of justice, as this text tells us, that the fact of actually having lunch together not only is in itself an act of courage, act of engaging even in a conversation, also too builds the landscape for more things. And God forbid if something comes up like saying that we need to go. And it's interesting, Muna, and I'm actually want to ask the same question. Why do you engage? However, before that, I was very proud of the fact that we just had elections in Austin, and there's a new city representative of our district, of my district. The mosque that burned down was not in her district, but you couldn't get in touch with her. You called me, who she happens to be Jewish, and I know her. That doesn't mean that we all know each other, but we know each other. And knowing that I was busy, I was traveling, I gave you her a conversation, and I connected the two of you, and she ended up going to, I hope, to go speak and that made this conversation, whereas a colleague of yours who I know sort of was like, you're going to do something. I'm like, yeah, no, because I'm busy and I'm going to be here. So the bandwidth that I had, but because it was you, I immediately activated on it. So what brings you to it? And how does this enrich your life? Or whatever else you want to say. That's not about that at all.
That actually, we had a mosque burned down in Austin. I don't know if you heard Rabbi say that, but it's been a tough time. And our community is not very organized. We don't have connections. We're not established. We don't even talk to each other sometimes. And to have a city official come and speak and show solidarity means a lot, right? And the fact that you didn't have the time and were asked, and then because of our relationship did that, thank you. And I think that exemplifies what we're trying to do here, right? Because we've got to take care of each other. And bringing it back to the text, right? The second paragraph, unless you forget a little, the world cannot endure. I think I'm guilty of holding the cord by both ends. I think we all are, right? We want justice, and we want the world to endure. And sometimes my justice means you don't get what you want, right? And we could possibly hold the cord by both ends if we know each other. That's actually the only way it's possible, when we care for each other, when we have the empathy to be able to hold the cord at both ends.
So I think that a central message of this text is that our responsibility is not rooted in certainty, that we don't know what's going to happen, and yet we engage and choose to engage anyway. So we'd like to bring other voices as well. So even though it's the time, and look at us, we're on YouTube at this point, it's super fun. We'd like to have you take a couple of minutes and turn to somebody next to you, because it's a long day, and make a friend and engage in these two texts, asking the question, do you see the palace burning? Is there a palace burning? And what kind of gradational, what kind of incremental work can you do with your friend right next to each other? Surprise, good morning. And then let's have a bigger conversation. So about 2 minutes, engage the texts, ask yourselves questions. We'll see what happens.
You get bonus points if you hug. My God, Muna.
Yeah, these are dangerous. Those are just big steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone fell down right here. I almost fell down.
Are they up? Are they not up? Ya la la, ila 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 ila. Ya la la, ila ila ila. Ya ila 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 ila. Ya la la, ila 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 ila. Ya la la, ila ila ila. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la. And I think what we've discovered is that in order to engage each other in a more realistic way, is that we actually have to be our true selves. And that we actually have to allow our individuality or the rootedness of who we are determine the relationships that we'll have rather than skating on the commonalities that we think that we need to sort of deal with. So allowing ourselves to be funny or try to be funny in front of each other, allowing ourselves to say, this is what I believe. Can we talk about Israel-Palestine together? Can we?
We have.
Amen. Do we agree?
Not always.
Amen. The idea that that's not something that just comes up. And I would encourage all of us as we discover our voices now to follow, certainly Amanda, to get involved in other lives that we have and to make this a relevant part of who we are, even if it's not exactly who we are in our own circles. If this is a value, then let's get involved.
Yeah, and invite us to your congregations. We would love to come and take our show on the road and come and see you, right?
For real.
We're going to get matching t-shirts and everything.
Right. I'm with Dan.
Do I have to wear a cowboy hat on top of my scarf?
Yes.
Just a cowboy hijab. No?
Okay.
So where are we with this? What did you come up with? What are some of the presenting ideas of these two texts? We'd love to get your voices. We'd love to get your, there's something I said?
I'm going to help with mic running.
Okay, cool.
You know, on this
Be
side,
careful.
that side.
Muna helping with mic running. That's super fun. How about, there's one? All right, whatever. Please, and introduce yourself. Let's do a thing.
Sure. My name is Elise Wechterman. I'm a rabbi in Philadelphia. And my question, so I actually have some questions about your process and some that I'd like to know more about instead of the text, although I think the texts are fascinating, which is how do you choose the text that you study with? Where do you start with that? And yeah, let's just start with that.
This is the first text we've studied together.
That's not true.
No,
The first time we met, and we did slichot together.
We did sleep. Okay, so we did 3 things together.
So publicly,
Yeah.
publicly 3 things together. What we've done is
Yeah.
that we've had common experiences at the Hartman Institute.
Right.
These are texts that as one who's participated in a 3.5-year program, these are some of the themes are roughly the same. So these particular texts, I thought A, would go well with the morning, and B, these are actually texts that Yehuda presented a couple of years ago about moral authority. So looking over my notes specifically that I had, I wanted to just connect and having the relationships that we do and knowing Yehuda and being part of Hartman, this would be something, and obviously being Abraham, it's checked that off too, as opposed to being about, Rabbi Akiva, which is cool for us, but people are like, yeah, I don't know who that, that sort of thing. Having it more of a relevance for everybody, it kind of worked perfectly. We eat.
I will also say that as all of us are fellows in the Hartman program, we were doing text study and Hevrutas every day. And so we may not have studied all of the time together, but we did that. That was the first time for myself to do that. But
Yeah, and I think also when we get together, so it's kind of a blend. We do have the spiritual conversations around whatever's happening, holidays and relevant texts and things like that. But then there's also the immediate needs. We're all very much embedded in our community and communities. And so bringing together, all 4 of us so that we can address, there's always something that comes up in your community, whether it's political or social or some disaster or whatever. I mean, there's always something happening that having sort of a wise counsel of diverse thought helps us work through.
Yeah, that's why I gave the answer I did, which is that for me, it's been a lot more about what we bring to the table at that moment, in a way, is the text. Instead of, sometimes we formally do something when we're doing something in public, but, in my tradition, I follow what's called a nation spirituality, spiritual Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, which is you discern your life. You're reading how God's moving in your life at that moment, and you bring it forth. And I feel like that's really what happens when we gather at meals together, is we're reading our lives out loud to each other.
And we inaugurated our meetings formally publicly a year ago on Slichot, when we all sort of talked about our Hartman experiences. And then over the year, and formally meeting like this, there had been a conversation that we had based on a decision that I had made to have a dual narrative community trip to Israel, for example. That made some news that you might have seen. We had a lot of conversation about all of that as well. So there's a lot, and then of course, various things. I've just became the immediate past president of our Interfaith Council in Central Texas, of which certainly Amanda and Muna, who's a board member, are very involved. So there's always lots of layers on which we speak, and we enjoy each other's company. How different are the texts in the old stories of all 3 traditions, and how do we pick what to read?
I just want to throw out there, so I was raised Christian, very fundamentalist Christian, read the Christian Bible many times, not necessarily because I wanted to, but I was indoctrinated. And then, so having, then converting to Islam and having that, I actually went through when I first converted and tried to match up as many of those stories as I could. I have an old notebook that I just I sat there with the Bible and the Quran and just sort of tried to cross-reference things. It was interesting exercise. And then having the Jewish piece on top of that, which is obviously incredibly authentic and such a rich, amazing, rich history of Torah exegesis, I guess is that what you commentary? And so all of those things, there are absolutely differences, but those differences, those some of them are so minor, are to me the most fascinating conversation points. Understanding why, when there are differences, I mean, there are clearly some things that are in Torah that don't even exist in our tradition per se, like in Islamic texts. But when there are things that match up, understanding the little variations, the most interesting part to me.
Are there a lot of Jews in the room that have studied Islam? I know Ari has. Are there? Yeah. I was fascinated at how similar Islam and Judaism really is. I know people talk about this Judeo-Christian tradition, but I feel like Jews and Muslims are much closer, right? And I'm always amazed at how similar the texts are. I think Christianity feels a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. As a scholar of Jewish-Christian relations, I try to educate Christians that when they say Judeo-Christian, they mean Christian. And that they have no concept of Judaism as anything that hosts Second Temple, right? And like zero conception of Islam. And so that's part of this question of how texts get picked is we've mostly done Jewish texts. I think mostly because we've been primarily kind of Jewish settings or Jewish organized settings. I think I would actually feel really funny bringing a Christian text early on into this kind of conversation because that feels like another act of privileging kind of a dominant conversation in America and not necessarily the most helpful thing to engage with.
More, please. Whatever happens.
Hi, my name is Saud Anwar. I'm a Hartman Fellow with the Muslim Leadership Initiative. So I was reading the first text and I understood it a little bit different.
Great.
So, you know, the palace to me is the heart. And in our travels to try and seek the beloved, we travel from one place to the other. And in the challenges that we see in our environment, sometimes the palace is burning. And then the palace belongs to the beloved. And in order to identify and recognize that, that actually requires that recognition and understanding. And then what it says is go forth from your land is also asking us to step outside of our comfort zones. Till we actually step outside of comfort zones, we would not necessarily be able to find that that beloved in the palace.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We'll just pull up a chair for you.
Hi, I'm Ronnie. I'm a recovering academic.
Hi, Ronnie.
I'm a lifelong Jewish learner and a concerned Jew. And I loved Saud's remark just now. I would like to also unpack that first midrash, but a little bit differently with the question. The owner of the palace looked out and said, I'm the owner of the palace. Well, the palace is burning, and either the owner doesn't recognize that or is not willing to do anything about it. And if we're talking allegorically about, let's just say, for example, Israel-Palestine, and the perpetual complaint that there's nobody to talk to on the other side, it seems to me that the owner of the palace, there's a dialectic here in the taking of responsibility, isn't there? That the owner of the palace, no matter how we read that, also has to recognize that the palace is burning and needs the help of Abraham or whoever might be passing.
Absolutely. And I think activating God to first acknowledge that there's a problem and then to fix the problem, I think is very, very important. And the adjuration is not just our own wailing, but it is our noticing and jostling God to say, wake up. Thank you.
There's a hand over here.
Micromanaging? What are you doing, Dan? I'm just
Being
privilege,
Dan.
white privilege again.
Aw, be nice to
You
Dan.
should have seen me traveling with these two. I was like, we got 15 minutes.
Hi, my name is Katya Felo. I teach religious and Jewish studies in South Carolina, which is very different from here. And I had two process questions as well. One is, how did you meet? So you mentioned the Hartman Institute a lot. And it made me think if for people who are not engaged yet in talking to someone from a different tradition, do we need this catalyst? Like, do we need someone who actually forces us in your case, quite literally, to travel and to look in from the outside at others and at our tradition. And the second one, maybe related, is within your group, how do you level the difference between having sort of professional readers, you know, a rabbi, a professor, and people who are avid readers and thinkers, but are not professional readers and speakers? How do you do that in a practical way? Thank you.
I want to talk about the first point. You know, so to be part of CLI, like someone had to know me and nominate me to be part of it. So which goes back to like personal relationships, like networks and webs. So I have that experience, which is really positive. And so my seminary participates in something called Interfaith Seminary Retreat. That brings our seminaries from Texas and Ziegler Rabbinic School in LA and Al Rahma Seminary in Baltimore, Sheikh Yassin, part of that. And we got together in this retreat center in Texas. And so the schools get the students together and we kind of pick the students to go. And so it's a trickle down in a way, right? Like, I think as we are catalyzed by relationships, then we need to become the catalysts in relationships as well, to encourage somebody to say, hey, I think you'd be really good at trying this thing or attending this thing. So I just want to speak to that first part. Maybe someone can speak to similar pieces.
I actually like what you said about being a catalyst and pointing somebody out to say, you know, you might be good at this. But to answer the question differently, we all have our life experiences, and that makes us qualified, period. And you don't need to, I'm not a scholar. I have a business degree, right? And I have a lot of friends who say things like, I'm just a housewife. I don't know, I don't know texts. I'm not a scholar. I didn't finish college. I feel uncomfortable. And I would say, yeah, but you can make some damn good chai and you can invite people to sit at your table and talk. And that is probably the most powerful thing, right? Because you're building relationships, you have your life experiences, you can even grow up, you know, this is how I grew up, this is what I learned, that's all I know about it, and share. And I think that's really where the power is. So nothing precludes you from participating in these type of conversations. You are qualified, period.
I just want to mention two things just quickly. That as I love this group, this is not my only rodeo of interfaith work. And I'm very much involved in African American Jewish reconciliation in Austin as well. That is a passion of mine. So I don't have degrees in any of that, and I think it's very important. And other iterations of things, I've sought out Presbyterians based on PCUSA politics and things like that. And now I consult and do some work with the Presbyterian seminary in town also. So those opportunities. As the head of the interfaith group, we have made a very concerted effort to have monthly gatherings around town just about stuff, about civility or memory or tradition or legacy or faith or strength or whatever that monthly conversation is. Everybody is welcome to show up, and people do. Hundreds of people show up just to sit and share chai recipes or to talk about what's what. In addition, we tried to deepen that conversation by modeling that every month a different place opens its doors to anybody who wants to come. We began with the Catholic Church. The one particular church in January opened its doors and said, we're going to have a service that is open to anyone of exploration. This month, next month in February, is the Lutherans, which is interesting. March I picked because it's Purim, so everybody's welcome. But we have, through the entire year, ways that have been disseminated into the larger community of saying, we take this seriously and we want you to join us and have the conversations and begin to sit together.
I just want to also address, I have an enormous amount of respect for people who are professional, who are trained scholars in Judaism, in Christianity, in Islam, in any theological tradition, right? I think that is absolutely necessary and important. And I recognize fully that I'm not that person. And I'm very grateful to both Dan and Neil for indulging me and allowing me to play scholar some days. I understand that that's not the person that I am. So I want to make that very clear, because Islam has a very, also has a very rigorous scholarship tradition, right? We don't represent that because at this point in time, the people who are in those positions are not fully prepared to join this kind of conversation with these partners. And as opportunists, as an opportunist, I'm going to go ahead and take what they're leaving on the table and have that engagement that is incredibly fulfilling and thrilling and fascinating. And when I had the opportunity to study at Hartman under these amazing scholars and have the opportunity to actually participate in Hevruta, guided by someone with a vast amount of knowledge, it was thrilling and fun. And I realized how beneficial that can be for lay persons. But all that to say, inshallah, we will see representation from the Muslim thought leadership scholars who are willing to do that at some point, because I feel like we need to represent a little better. We're going to do the best that we can with what we have, but inshallah.
Right. So I think as we have more questions and more thoughts, we want to certainly respect the flow of the day. Please seek us out. We're here all day. Please seek each other out. Ask your questions, get involved, and allow yourselves a chance to not only look at these particular texts, but privilege your own and think about the relationships of not just receiving something for your head, but maybe we can open our hearts. So the last thing I think we'd like to do, because I think music can speak much more powerfully than the positioning of words. Would you all take a deep breath, please? Can you just take a moment, put the tweet down for a second, just a deep breath. To allow yourself a chance, the preciousness of just being here, the luxury that we have, and we realize as we see people who our lives can change instantly in any moment. And the gratitude that we have of being able to be assembled in this moment is not something that we take for granted. The gratitude that the four of us have of gathering and of just sharing time, sharing precious time, is not something that we take for granted at all. And even when, especially when we disagree, I think that it's that opportunity to realize we have the time, space, and capacity to do so, which transforms us more than any agreement we might have. So together, everybody, as we finish. Ya la la, ya 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 la la, ya la, ya la, ya la, ya la, ya la, ya la la, ya la, ya la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la, ya la, ya la la. Thank you.
Really want to thank our panelists today. Really enjoyed that. And thank you all. There's about a 15-minute break now before the next session. Enjoy.